restarting this stream slash video because apparently we have a new mailman in my apartment complex and he didn't know where the mailboxes were. So the mailman and we just went on a little journey together, found the mailboxes. Everything's good. He knows where all the mailboxes are, and now I can restart the video, which is a shame because I got like halfway into the first problem. So let's just, I guess, keep on going, and as we play, I'll start explaining some of the things I was talking about before I started this video. So yeah, the reason I'm doing another tactics video today is because of my stunningly embarrassing performance from yesterday. And after, the lack of sleep and the lack of practice, I realized it doesn't hurt to have more tactical training, especially when I'm such a low-level player. I still have a lot to learn, so yeah, why not? Why not learn some more chess in its tactical form? And I have a whole analogy about what tactics are compared to strategy and the movement of units, but we won't get into that today. What I did want to say is this. I've made a goal for myself, and the end goal is that I will not move onto the normal level of tactics on Lee chess until, for now, this is a hesitant estimate, about maybe 100 consecutive correct answers on easy. That's what I'm hoping for. Of course, I'm not going to get there in one day. So for today, what I'm going to do is just go for 3 consecutive correct tactical answers on easy. And then if I get there, maybe we'll go for 5, etc., etc., etc. And this is to give me some kind of milestones and steps, concrete measurements of how much better I am getting tactically before I move on. And of course that brings up a whole other avenue of discussion about, is it just for concrete measurements? When you have goals, is it just to reach results? And the answer, of course, is no. The reason we do tactics is not just so that we can solve puzzles more and more and more, but it's so that we get used to unit movement. It's so that we get used to reading the board, counting pieces, and so much more. There's so much involved with this process, and really the main focus is a process of learning, but having concrete measurable milestones, tests, if you want to call them, give the individual who's studying a good way of knowing if they're improving or not. It's kind of like having ranking in competitive games, like the ELO system, or as some people pronounce it, ELO system in chess, or the whatever Lee chess system that they use. The rankings help people know if how good they are compared to an average of people, but it also lets them know if they're improving, if they're winning more games against the average or losing more games against the average. And so it's a good way to look at progress, so a good way to mark progress. Dare I say, though, for anybody who is getting into any kind of competitive scene, who wants to improve quickly, don't focus so much on ranks. Do not focus so much on end results, and your improvements will be so much better, so much easier to make. The progress of studying will be so much easier if you focus on progress or learning, if you focus on building basic skills, repetition and exercise of certain skills. If you can find pleasure in doing the hard work, it's only natural that you'll progress from there. And so that's why you end up with people becoming masters of some things or others, like somebody who's good at drawing or somebody who's good with an instrument. It's not necessarily because they have an inborn talent for it. But generally, the greatest masters in whatever field are people who have been exposed to it for a very long time, and who generally, compared to other people, live and breathe that system, whatever it may be it chess, martial arts, music, certain academic fields. It's because they love those fields, and they love the minutiae of progress and practice and heavy lifting. That's why they're able to master those fields. But wow, okay, that's taken such a wild step. Let's go back to the task at hand, which is, for me, not sucking at tactics. So this looks like a very simple problem. Let's start with this. I'm black. Let's look at White's pieces. Pretty easy. He has one minor piece, no other pieces on the board. Very open board. King is on h3. Knight is on e2. White knight's influence. Let's see here. That's not correct. Wow. For some crazy reason, I keep forgetting which squares the knight can actually keep control of. I don't know. I might be just getting crazy and old now, I guess. But so okay, that's the white knight's squares of influence. So those are the squares that we want to be careful of. Of course, you know, late game, king also has these squares of influence. That's quite easy. On the black side, I have 2 pawns, 3 pawns. These pawns are double pawns. They could somehow make it up there. I mean, this pawn's ready to go. This pawn is just ready to go. And I think, if I remember correctly, at the beginning of this puzzle, white just took a piece. I think it was a pawn trying to pass and get promoted. That leaves another pawn here to get promoted. My knight would be in danger from this king, if not for this pawn. So I have no intentions of moving this pawn anytime soon. Let's just start kind of thinking up different potential avenues of attack now. So first attack, most obvious one I see, is just move the pawn up, turn it into queen. Boom. These are the ooh, that's not a real square. These are the lines of attack that queen would control. And so as soon as that happens, king would have to move there. As soon as that happens, I could freely go over here. And then at that point, king would be here. Queen would be controlling these points. Knight would still be here. That leaves the avenue of escape for his king here. And then if I move my queen here, that would be checkmate. Seems simple enough. I think I'm reading that correctly. But something I noticed today in the morning when I was playing some more tactics on the shitter, as I often do, which sounds embarrassing now that I've said it in public, is that I'm not very actually good at imagining the board, visualizing the board correctly after certain steps. So let's kind of run through this again to make sure that the steps are right. And this time, instead of saying here or there, let's actually use the square names. So I would first start with pawn to h1, and I'm not going to move the cursor around either. Let's just kind of try to visualize this together. Pawn to h1, promote to queen. King is in check, so moves to g3. Queen to h2, check. King to f3. Queen to f2, check. Is it a checkmate? King cannot go to g2. King cannot go to f4. King cannot go to g3. King cannot go to e3, and king cannot go to e4 because of the pawn. So that is checkmate. Second question, let's take it a step back, and let's make sure that f3 is the only place the king can go back when he's at g3 and the queen moves to h2. So queen's on h2, king's on g3. King cannot move to any of the h squares because of the queen. King cannot go on any of the 2 rank, or the 2nd rank, I guess, because of the queen. King cannot directly move to f4 because of the queen's diagonal, and so that leaves only one space available from g3, which would be the f3 square. Okay. That seals it for me. That seems like the right tactic. And during all of this time, it looks like the queen is either too far away from the knight, and too far away from the king, or she is defended by my knight on g4. Okay, so let's do this. Pawn to h1, check. King is forced to g3. Move to h2, check. King moves to f3, and finally queen to f2, check. And I think that's mate. All right, great. So we solved that one in 300 seconds. I think that is 5 minutes. There was a pretty long intro in the beginning, and I think I'm not too worried about time. I think time is something that I will get better at as I just keep doing more and more tactics. A lot of these kind of things like counting pieces, knowing spheres of influence, those are generally things that improve speed-wise over duration and repetition. And more than anything, I think when I'm practicing tactics, it's important, and this is true for generalized fields of all other systems, when you're trying to improve skills or do exercise, it's important. Old, angry coaches will always say this to young, impetuous upstarts who want to get better quickly. They will say it's more important to do it right than it is to do it quick. And that's because speed comes with time. Speed comes with repetition. And it's important that you get quick doing it right rather than doing it quick and being 50-50 wrong. But anyway, I don't want to generalize again. This is going to take ages if we keep on doing that. So let's just move on to the next puzzle. I'm sorry. I'm really long-winded today. Okay, so another puzzle, another game. Let's start with the pawns. We have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 6 pawns on white side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pawns on my side, on black side. Excuse me. I don't know if I made the burrito comment in this take as well, but I had a burrito. It's starting to do mean things to me right now. Yeah, so the pawns, let's see their structures. This, I like this. Well, I don't know what that arrow is about. Ignore the arrow. This structure, I think that's good. There's a lot of potential play here. It would be better if maybe... I actually don't really know enough about pawn structures to say more than that I like this. I like that there are 3 pawns on the king side compared to this pair of pawns and this lonely pawn over here. I see avenues of good attack. I mean, you know, use this pawn, take, move, right? Take, or then just start slowly moving up these pawns, right? Move this, take, and then this pawn can just go all the way home in case this happens. Anyway, so this pawn structure is nice. Still kind of in the starting lines there on white's 3rd and 4th rank there. And here on the black side, we have a blocked pawn here, and then a little defense from his pair buddy here. And this pawn can move up at any time, but I think, yeah, right now this pawn is kind of ineffectual. Let's see, on this side we have another pawn pair for white, and then just this disconnected pawn pair over here. I don't really see a lot going on over there. If white does get a nice defense, maybe he can push this pawn up, take, pass pawn. Oh, I guess it's not a pass pawn until he gets here, so I don't know. Hard to say. And finally, this is a pass pawn. If this file is opened up, this pawn can go straight for promotion, but I don't think that's going to happen. Oh, obviously not. It's not going to happen in this tactic in the game. Who knows? It could potentially happen. Let's move on from the pawns. I guess before we move on to pawns, what I should say is, with where the king is right now, and the influences that my pawns hold, I don't think there's going to be a lot of potential pawn play. Hold on, I'm going to see if somebody's knocking on my door. Must be my mistake. I have headphones on while I'm recording, so I can't hear anything. Thus the mailman dropping by my window and things like that. But anyway, I guess we'll move on here. But yeah, it seems that like this pawn influence that I have on these squares here potentially could help me with a checkmate of some kind. But we'll see. We'll see. We don't know if it's going to be a checkmate kind of puzzle or not. Okay, let's move on to the major pieces. He has a queen, I have a queen. I have a rook, he has a rook, and we don't have, we only have one rook each. Rook-wise, I definitely like my side more. I'm on an open file. I'm on an open file with his king nonetheless, as soon as I move my knight, which is what I'm starting to think is the best opening move. Especially because I see this tactic here, knight to f2, and then king has to move because of a discovered attack or discovered check, and then knight can just take the queen. In fact, I'm pretty certain that is the end of tactic, but let's keep on using our brains here. So yeah, I really like this rook here, and that's how tactics works, right? You look at the board, you start looking at all of the pieces, their influence, their power that they hold, and that's when you see the avenues of attack. That's when you see things like, oh, this is an open file. Oh, if I move this knight, then I have a discovered attack. Then you start looking at, well, where do I need to put this knight? Obviously not here, because if I put him here, king gets a nice easy treat as he escapes from the discovered attack. Not here, same reason. Not here, because as soon as the king moves, now I have to worry about this guy. Now I have to move him again, so I'm wasting a tempo. So, you know, you start thinking about these different kind of things. So the potentials of moving either here or here are pretty strong. Okay, well, now that we have the rooks kind of summarized, I mean, his rook isn't doing anything. This is closed off. This is very closed off file, and the only moves he can do right now, any way for him to escape and become useful, I mean, here's one move that can become useful, but, you know, that's going to take one move, whereas my discover attack is going to be immediate. So we'll see where that goes. Minor pieces wise, let's take a look there. I have 2 knights and a bishop. He has 1 knight and 2 bishops. So again, we're working with the imbalanced pairs here. His bishop, his light squared bishop, has a very strong line over here. There aren't any other pieces currently for him to coordinate with. Potentially, if his queen moves over to f5, and I mean, he would also have to get his knight in a good position. But then I could seek some kind of potential attack on this f7 square, one of the weaker, what am I saying? One of the weaker squares right now. I was mixing it up with my, wait, the f7 square and the f2 square. Is that right? Am I crazy nuts right now? No, yeah, okay. The weaker squares all throughout the game, actually. So, okay, yeah, very cool. Very cool. Very strong bishop. Other hand, my bishop doesn't have a lot of influence. Doesn't control a lot of diagonals. Just kind of sitting there defending my knight right now and defending this, defending pawn in this pawn pair on a6. So, yeah, I would say his light squared bishop is doing a lot more work. Meanwhile, his dark squared bishop is in a similar position as my light squared bishop. Not doing a lot of work, just defending some pawns, kind of closed off from the rest of the board. I can definitely see an opening move like this, or maybe something like this. But you have to worry about an en passant, but that's okay because he has his light squared bishop to take, which is good. Especially then putting pressure on this knight. Yeah, so like c5 kind of move, or maybe a c4 if you're feeling, I don't know, especially safe. Doesn't seem to really matter. And then, you know, this avenue of attack opens up quite a bit more for the bishop. So that's what I would hope for. But right now he can't do anything. Similarly, for my light squared bishop, I would want to move somewhere. I would have to move this knight out somewhere so that this light squared bishop can have a bit more influence. But with this pair of pawns on the light squares right there, it's going to be pretty hard. Another great one I see right now is boom, queen. Attacking that queen from this c8 square, that's pretty good, and it gets him out. And then he can move to something like, what is it, e6 over here. And, oh man, I would love something like that. But yeah, just other different things to think about. But especially since we're looking at something like him, the opponent being able to quickly do a rook to g1 kind of thing. Oh, I guess he can't do rook to g1 though, because I can just take on I can take with my queen on g1. But yeah, with how vulnerable this potential avenues of attack may be, we gotta do something pretty fast. We've looked at the bishops, let's look at the knights. Knight's influence here is like this. White's knight influence guards a pawn, controls a couple squares, but I don't know, I don't feel the danger. Let's say he moves somewhere like this though. Now we're getting a little more interesting, but you know, he's only really attacking one piece, and that piece can move wherever it needs to. Oh my god! Damn it, I did it again. I know what the answer is, but god damn it. Oh, yeah. And a win doesn't count for me if I make stupid mistakes like that. I don't include those in my correct answers. So, and of course the computer doesn't either. So, we're just gonna have to live with that. But yeah, if I really wanted to hold this knight down, I could do something like queen to h7, block all of his aggressive squares, and then the only way he could get out of there is just to leave that way. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. His knight, as we've summarized, isn't doing anything. Let's look at this. My knight. Oh, I like where he is. He's attacking two pieces, defending another piece. He is kind of in a dangerous spot right now. But thanks to this rook, again with this possibility of a discovered attack, he's in a great position. I mean, this rank, the third rank here, he's doing so much. He's doing so much controlling the action here. So yeah, I love where he is. And then this knight here, let's see what he's doing. Attacking one piece, defending another pretty valuable piece. I wouldn't say that he's doing as much as his brother over on the third rank, or I guess from my side it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rank. Yeah. But my knight on the 3rd rank here, well, it's not bad. It's not great, though. It's not great. I would generally want him maybe 1 rank up on the 4th rank. And of course, once you put him on 4th, the 5th or 6th rank, beautiful. That is exactly where I would want him. This would be an ideal place, but that would take quite a lot of moves to get there. But I mean, over from here, he defends his brother, and the avenues of defense and attack are just, they're beautiful. Anyway, we know what the answer is. The answer is this. The answer is we move our knight away from the dangerous position with his king. We open a discovered attack. That's a check. King is forced to move, and then as soon as the king is forced to move with our tempo, we take the queen. We are now up by 9 points of material. At this point, I don't know, there are a lot of good potentials of attacks that can go. In fact, let's just for fun continue this line and see what happens from here. Let's turn him off, because I would rather think that I would play as a normal player. Something like this. As the white player, I don't want to trade any more pieces. I want to put pressure on. And so I would do something like this, I think. Putting pressure on here. Pinning. Oh my god. Yeah, pinning this guy. And if he moves, then we can just take that bishop. And if the rook decides to go for the exchange right now, I've taken a minor piece for a major piece. I'm loving it. I'd be totally fine with it. As black right now, however, now that I've traded pieces, I want to keep on going for these fair trades. I'm ahead in the game. I'm 9 points ahead in the game. I would very much really rather like to, do all that I can to take and take and take and take. I don't see any kind of quick trades that are going to happen anytime soon, however. So one of the things that I did talk about before is the idea of just putting this knight into an even shittier square. And that would be by doing this. By moving queen over here, now the knight couldn't jump into any of the closer squares. However, I want to make sure that I am putting my queen into a good square herself. Another interesting move would be going here. This not only opens up an avenue of attack or to get my queen onto the back side, but also puts pressure on this knight while still closing all of his squares. In fact, I really like that move. Oh, I just noticed, however, that the knight can always move here because the queen can't take over there. So I have to be careful about that as well. What to do? What to do? I'm okay with the situation right now. However, I would like to break it up at some point with some kind of trade. The only 2 free pieces that I actually really have right now. Oh, I see. And if I go over there, then... Well, no, that's not a good move, because then the king can take. There are some vulnerabilities over here. But yeah, the only real moves I can see... Ah, I see. So, first off, I'm going to close the avenues of attack for this knight. Except for this place, which isn't too bad. And I have to make sure that if he moves over here, he's not going to have... Once he moves to a different square, not that one, because that one obviously was ineffectual. Once he moves to a different square, that I'm not going to end up in some kind of double attack in a bad position. But the only double attack potential I see right now from this square is the king and the knight. And by that point, that's 1-2 moves for him. I can take, that'll be fine. But I'm not going to have to worry about that for 2 moves, and I know my next move is going to put him into a little bit of jeopardy already. My next move, if he does go here, my next move will be to move my knight over here, and I will be going for that trade with that bishop. So bishop will have to move. So even if he does come over down here to do the double attack and I have to take him, at that point my knight will not be pinned, and my bishop can move freely out. Yeah, so I think I got my juices rolling there. That was pretty good lines that I did there. And now we'll go back to the trainer, and we'll do the next one. Oh, that was really shitty on my part. Okay, this one doesn't have as much material, so let's take a quick look at it. We're looking at some pawns. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 on the opponent's side. This structure is nice, especially compared to my 1 pawn over. On my side, still on the 2nd rank, hasn't moved a bit during this game. And then comparably, let's look at this, and then let's compare it to this. This is slow. This is about 2 tempos slower than this one, I'd have to say. 3, 4, possibly 4. This is on its 3rd rank. This is on their 4th rank. So there's 1 move at least behind. But then with the trade involved as well, yeah. I don't know, this is a lot slower. A lot slower. So pawn-wise, I like where he's at. I like where his pawns are. Major pieces-wise, let's look at that. He's black. I'm white. He has 2 rooks. I have 2 rooks. My rooks are connected and on his 2nd rank. I have no idea how that happened. My king is vulnerable to his 1 rook. But his rook is defended, so I can't just get rid of him. But if he ever tries any kind of funny business, Lucy. I don't know, that wasn't a funny reference at all. But anyway, so yeah, I could take if he moves off of this e4 square. For now, though, he can do some kind of quick tempo check, and then, yeah, it's vulnerable, so I don't really worry too much about it. In fact, I mean, what with the connected rooks, I'm feeling really good about my position compared to his. Going back to the pawns for a second, I'm sorry. These 2 pawns versus 1, obviously I can make it past, if I do make it past. But right now with this rook, it's not going to happen. His other rook is on his 1st flank. Not a lot going on there. Not truly defending his king. I mean, he is defending his king on the rank side, but this square is very vulnerable. I mean, and that's the first line of attack I'm going to look at. I don't really think it's necessary for us to look at the avenues of influence of my rooks, but here you go. This is pretty clear. I see an immediate check here. King can't go anywhere but h8. And then at that point, I would just do another check on h7. King would have to move back to g8, and then we move our rook, 2nd rook, our d rook, over to g7, and that would be checkmate, because the king would not be able to go to f7 and would not be able to go back to h7. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. Let's check something else out. What if the e rook goes to h7? Well, that's not a checkmate. So then he checks. Then I have to move because my e rook is gone. And then he checks again. Then I have to move. Then he would eat one of my pieces. And then, I mean, he probably wouldn't eat one of my pieces. He'd probably be a lot more curious about destroying my rooks. So he'd probably connect his rooks, and then he'd move one of them onto the 2nd rank, and then we would have a rook on rook battle. And he would want to position it so that when we have our rook on rook battle, the king is a diagonal off like over here, so that when we do have a rook on rook battle, he ends up with the final trade and we both are rookless and he would be pawns up. So we don't want to give him tempo. We don't want to leave this e file if we're not putting him in check. So I think this is the best move. Let's try it out. All right, he has to move there. Check again. All right, and checkmate. Okay, this time let's use real words. So e rook to g7, check. King to h8. Rook to h7. That's the only rook that can go to h7. Check again. King to g8, and finally d rook to g7. Checkmate, because the king cannot go to f7 and king cannot go to h8, and he can't take either of the rooks. All right, that was a pretty easy one. So really I've gotten 3 correct. It's just that I fucked up on the second one, and yeah, that sucks. What can you do? What can you do? Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more. See how good see how good my early game tactics are. That's what we're gonna do. This looks like a game that could potentially happen to me. Some silly mistakes and trades have already happened. Let's start with the pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pawns. Oh, 6 pawns, I'm sorry. And this file is completely open. These 2 files. Not much to say except that this pawn is way the fuck up here. That's very interesting. On the white side, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same amount. Am I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. So we have 6 pawns on our side. Very similar position, except his pawn is really pushing the limits here. Alright, that's fair. That's fair. Let's look at some of the major pieces. Queen, queen, rook, 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 rook. And it looks like I'm in the favorable major piece position, because these lines are open, and guess who's on these lines with major pieces? Me. So that's good. On the other hand, his 2 major pieces, the rooks, need to develop, and his queen is on a closed line, although he has an open diagonal. So I'm not too worried for him. Incidentally, though, that open diagonal is not a very good diagonal. He has one choice on this diagonal, and that choice would block his bishop's avenue of influence. Alright, so now we have the major pieces done. Let's move on quickly to the minor pieces. I have a knight. I have a bishop. He has 2 knights. He has 2 bishops. Wow. Okay, so you're saying that we've traded 2 pawns apiece, and he's also taken all of my minor pieces except for a knight? Oh, that's fucked. Okay, so that alone means that I'm down 9 points. That's crazy. That's crazy. So let's start looking at different avenues of attacks. I guess another piece that we could have talked about is development. Who's developed further? Well, he has 3 of his pieces outside of their starting positions, and I would say in true development fashion, these 2 pieces are, I mean, definitely out there. This piece is way too far out there. Doesn't need to be that far out there. But then on my side, one could say all of my minor pieces are developed, because they are. I have castled, and if I play my cards right, my rooks will be touching very soon. So that's good. That's good. So let's start looking at lines of attack. Alrighty. Very first thing I see, again, kind of like the puzzle from 2 puzzles ago. I don't know how to say that correctly. We can move our knight, open our avenue of attack on this open file with our queen. Check. The question is, where do we move our knight? Because there's something valuable and tasty that has to give us back 9 points. Oh, buddy. Incidentally, is this checkmate, by the way? It is knight to f6 checkmate. This opens up the avenue of attack. King cannot escape anywhere on this e-file with the knight there. King cannot go to the d7 square, and there is no way in God's great mind where he can escape both of the checks at the same time. Looks like a very simple puzzle, doesn't it? It's just a straight up check, huh? Alright. That was very simple, but it's always good to count. I know for some of you viewers it must be very boring and annoying to watch me consistently do the same thing. Pawn count, pawn structure, major pieces, minor pieces, avenues of influence. But honestly, that is one of the first tier, the most fundamental basis that I know of, personal experience wise, of getting better at chess. If you are able to start looking at the board on each move in that way, rapidly being able to calculate the material count as well as the control of space that each of the pieces are holding, that is the first level you want to get good at. That's the first level that you really want to practice, because as soon as you're able to start seeing things like open squares, potentials of pawn structures moving up, movement of, avenues of attack, avenues of control, when you start seeing those things, that's when the tactics starts flowing. That's when you see potential moves, and that's also when you can, as a player, thinking on the opponent's side, well, where would he move from here? What is the best move for my opponent? Because you constantly want to be thinking for both the players. Chess is so fun because you're not only thinking about yourself, but truly, I think a good performance for me personally has always come from when I can think for both of the sides, and it's always exciting for me when I see a good move for my opponent and then he plays it. It makes me think that maybe I've made a right choice. It redeems my tactical thinking. So yeah, even if you find it kind of boring, I mean, I guess I'll rate this. It's a very simple. Yeah. Anyway, even if it may seem very boring, this repetitive exercise of counting material, counting pawns, counting structure, or looking at structure, looking at lines of attack, looking at avenues of influence, those are all of the basic skills that you keep wanting to reinforce as you play. And the more and more that you reinforce these tactical ways of thinking, or these foundational bases of thinking, bases of thinking. Anyway, the more that you exercise these fundamentals, I promise you, the better your chess game will become. The key is that when you play your chess game, that you don't go back into your reactionary and very focused style of play, where, I have this habit, so I know other people do, where you start playing and you start only focusing on very specific lines, let's go back. Oh, I can't even go back. Well, I made a blunder. But yeah, you start looking at very specific lines, and then you stop counting the way that you're supposed to. You stop looking for other potential ways of attacking, and so then you lose good chances. You lose blunders, or you make blunders, But anyway, there has been a lot of ranting in this video, so I deeply apologize for that. When I started making videos, I wanted to keep them succinct, and I wanted to make them more about playing, so I'll try to cut way down on that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this tactics video. I definitely did a lot better today, but I feel like these past problems were a lot less abstract than the ones I did yesterday. The ones I did yesterday really, maybe it was because of how tired I was, but they own me. They own me hard. Anyway, hope you guys have a good night. Thanks for watching.